I often dream of a stranger, a man with whom I indulge in indescribable passion. But every time I wake up, I can't remember his name. 6 months later, I finally found him. The good news? He's just as handsome as he was in the dream. The bad news? He's my boyfriend's older brother. Chapter 1. Michael announced that he was taking me to his hometown to meet his family. When he brought it up, it wasn't a question, it was a directive. Dress nicely and make it sexy. He said, "It's winter, sexy isn't practical." I replied, "What? You don't want to go? Then let's break up." He shot back, his tone indifferent and careless, knowing full well I wouldn't end things so easily. I stayed quiet for a moment. "I can't afford new clothes." "Knew it." He sneered. He transferred me 50,000 yuan without a second thought, then waved me off impatiently. "Take the money. I'm playing games now. So don't bother me." Acting as though I had no temper, I lowered my gaze and left the room. Michael's mocking voice drifted behind me as he joined his friends in a voice chat. "Yeah, I'm bringing her back home. Let's see if this finally makes Helen jealous. I only picked this girl to piss Helen off. You think I'd seriously be into someone like her? And my family? Don't worry. This show is going to be perfect. Helen hasn't seen my parents in 4 years. But I'm taking this girl home after only a month. That's gotta sting, right? And relax, my brother makes all the decisions at home. As for her," Michael chuckled dismissively, still engrossed in his game. "She's exactly the type my brother hates the most." Chapter 2. A month ago, Michael suddenly set his sights on me and insisted we start dating. Everyone at school knew that young Master Song had just broken up with his first love. Him coming to me now could only mean one of two things: either I was a rebound, or just a fling. Either way, sincerity wasn't part of the deal. But I agreed, because I desperately needed the money. I had been working odd jobs to save up for my mother's surgery, but her condition had recently worsened. Waiting was no longer an option. And right then, Michael threw me a lifeline. The Song family owned a publicly traded conglomerate, with Michael's older brother at the helm. Even if Michael was just a playboy rich kid with a penchant for luxury sports cars, being around him would give me enough scraps to cover the surgery costs. Michael didn't know any of this. He thought I was head over heels in love with him. Chapter 3. Michael booked first-class tickets. As soon as we boarded the plane, he put on a pair of heavy headphones, clearly signaling he didn't want to be disturbed. That was fine by me. I quickly drifted off to sleep. And then it happened again. I was in the arms of a man, my skin flushed with heat. Again? How many times has this happened this month? Haven't I had enough? He gently brushed his fingers over my lips, now swollen and red from his kisses, and asked, "You look beautiful today. Where are you headed?" "To my boyfriend's house," I answered. "You have a boyfriend?" "Yes," I replied, a bit defiantly. He fell silent for a long time. I looked up and met his gaze, a deep, turbulent emotion flickering in his eyes. He was, without question, an extraordinary man. His features were cold and refined, his body lean but solid, with broad shoulders and a narrow waist. Otherwise, I wouldn't have let myself fall for him in my dreams. "Break up with him," he said softly, his voice low and soothing, as though coaxing me. "No." "Why? What am I lacking?" "Nothing." He had it all, but who could ever stay with a man from their dreams? When you wake up, there's nothing left. I don't know if my words struck a nerve, but he didn't press further. I woke up with a jolt as the plane landed, shaking me free from the dream. Michael was staring at me, frowning. "Grace, are you feeling hot?" I wiped the light sweat from my forehead. "I'm fine." The dream again. It had started about 6 months ago, this man appearing out of nowhere in my dreams. At first, the dreams were fairly ordinary. Then, one day, I realized not only was he exactly my type, but his physique was nearly flawless. And so I started getting handsy. The dream spiraled completely out of control from there. I didn't know who he was, and every time I tried to ask for his name, I'd forget it the moment I woke up. But the sensations in the dreams? They were as vivid as if they'd really happened. I even consulted a doctor in secret. The doctor told me it was just a dream. "You're young, full of energy. It's normal." Fair enough. After all, I'd never so much as held a man's hand in real life. Michael barely tolerated me, and I had my own ulterior motives. So we kept a mutual, unspoken distance. You're a little red in the face, Michael said, still watching me. It wasn't like he'd never seen me blush before. But this was different. I calmly touched my cheek. It's a bit warm. That's all. Don't tell me you've never been on a plane before. He teased. No, this is my first time. Thank you, I replied sincerely. My straightforwardness completely derailed whatever mocking remark he had planned. After a pause, he suddenly reached out and adjusted the air vent above my seat. The action seemed to surprise even himself, leaving him frozen for a second. Thanks, I said lightly, turning my attention to the window. Chapter 4. At the airport. While we were collecting our luggage, Michael stepped aside to take a call. Did you guys arrange to meet Helen? All right. See you in a few days. Girlfriend? I'll break up with her after seeing Helen. When he noticed me approaching, he quickly hung up. Grace, there's something you should know, he said. What is it? When we're at my house, my parents are easygoing, but you need to be careful around my brother. Oh, is he a man-eater? Michael gave me a strange look. I used to only respond with a mem or okay whenever he spoke, acting as docile as possible. Now that I was close to saving enough money, my desire to keep up the act had drastically dwindled. My brother has a bad temper, and he's very controlling. What he says goes, both at home and at work. Even my parents are a little afraid of him now. Just tread carefully when you meet him. As mischievous as Michael usually was, he suddenly seemed genuinely fearful and reverent when he talked about his older brother. I got it, I replied, feigning disinterest. Michael seemed even more perplexed. Aren't you excited to visit my family? Sure, I said flatly. Michael. A driver picked us up and drove us to the Song family villa. Just as Michael said, his parents were warm and welcoming, treating me with genuine kindness. That was, until dinner. Oberon came home. Michael's usual swagger vanished in an instant. He stood up straight like a scolded schoolboy and obediently said, Brother, long trip, wasn't it? His voice was calm, cool, and smooth like polished jade. The sound sent chills down my spine. I turned my head and froze, my eyes widening in shock. It was him, the man from my dreams. Chapter 5. Brother, this is my girlfriend, Grace. Michael introduced me. Oberon's gaze swept over my face briefly. Welcome. He was exactly as he was in my dreams. His double eyelids were sharp at the inner corners and tapered wider at the ends, giving his face a cold, detached look. He loosened his tie and took a sip of water, a single droplet trailing down his Adam's apple and disappearing into his shirt, outlining the contour of his chest. Only then did he take a seat at the dining table. The room seemed quieter with his presence. Even Michael acted more subdued, almost unrecognizable. Occasionally, the conversation shifted to me. Grace, Michael tells us you've never dated before? Yes, ma'am. Michael is my first boyfriend. Oh, my, a beautiful girl like you? It's rare for someone so lovely to never have been in a relationship. I swallowed nervously and glanced at Oberon out of the corner of my eye. He was cutting his steak, seemingly indifferent to the conversation. Of course, he couldn't possibly know me. This was just my one-sided dream. Why had I dreamed of him? It must have been my subconscious. Maybe I'd caught a glimpse of his photo in some finance article and unknowingly made him the subject of my dreams. I straightened up and smiled, eager to keep up appearances. Ma'am, this is my first relationship. Meeting Michael feels like such a stroke of luck. He's such a prominent figure at school. I've admired him since my first year. Michael can be a little mischievous, but deep down, he's a good kid. Grace, I heard you're a top student. Please take care of him. Of course, ma'am. I really like Michael, I said sweetly. What I really liked were the red envelopes they were going to give me. Suddenly, I felt a gaze fall on me. Instinctively, I looked up. Oberon was responding to work messages and hadn't glanced my way at all. Had I imagined it? Chapter 6. After a few days at the Song family home, I was beginning to settle in. Oberon was rarely around. When we did cross paths, he would simply nod politely, maintaining a distant demeanor. I was becoming more certain that the dreams were only mine. The day to meet Helen was fast approaching. Michael wasn't satisfied with the outfit I had prepared and ordered another one through a friend. It was a strappy summer dress, entirely unsuitable for winter. He made me put it on to take some couple photos with him. The fabric was thin, and despite the underfloor heating in the villa, I was shivering. Michael didn't notice. He was fixated on capturing the perfect photo to make his ex jealous. The next day, I came down with a fever and a sore throat. Michael couldn't have cared less. He was busy going out drinking with his friends. As he left, I overheard him complaining on the phone. She had to get sick now. Do you think she'll embarrass me when we see Helen? Got any backup girls? Drifting in and out of fevered dreams. I could barely tell what was real. My throat burned, and I dragged myself out of bed to get some water. The study across the hall was open. I looked up and saw Oberon. Chapter 7. At this hour, Michael was out partying, and his parents were running errands. Oberon should have been at work. Why was he home? There was only one explanation: I was dreaming again. If it's a dream, then I know how to handle this. I stumbled into the study and threw myself into his arms. Feeling wronged. I'm miserable, I murmured. He hesitated for a moment before asking, "Did you take your medicine?" I did. Then rest properly. But I clung to him, refusing to let go. "I saw someone who looks just like you. Is that so?" "But I know he's not you." "And how do you know that?" "Because you're a dream. The moment I see the mole on your collarbone, I know I'm dreaming." I deftly unbuttoned his shirt. That mole, I knew it too well. In my dreams, I had bitten that spot countless times. Sitting on his lap, I traced the mole with my fingers. Oberon suddenly stopped me. "Didn't you say you liked him very much?" "What?" "You said you really liked Michael. How do you know about song?" My brain short-circuited. Every ounce of intimacy drained from the room. I pinched my thigh hard. Pain. This wasn't a dream. This was real. The man beneath me, his clothes disheveled, his eyes impossibly deep, it was the real Oberon. "Grace." He called my name, his low voice tinged with something electrifying. "For half a year, you kept asking me in your dreams. Now I finally remember your name." His words froze me. What did he mean? Did he also dream? My mental CPU was about to crash. I was still straddling him, wearing nothing but my pajamas. He was slightly disheveled, his shirt half undone. His eyes bore into mine. Just then, a knock came from the door. "Brother, have you seen my girlfriend?" "Michael." He was back. "Brother, are you there?" I think I just heard Grace's voice. Dead silence. "No one?" "I'm coming in." The doorknob turned. Chapter 8. Michael stepped inside. "Brother, you're here?" Oberon asked. "Why are you back?" "I just thought it wasn't right to leave her alone. By the way, brother, I didn't see Grace in the bedroom. Have you seen her?" "No." Oberon lowered his gaze. At that moment, I was crouched under the desk, pressed against Oberon's trousers, not daring to make a sound. "Maybe she went to the bathroom. I'll wait here for a bit." Michael plopped onto the sofa and pulled out his phone to play a game. Before his game could load, he suddenly sniffed the air and frowned. "Brother, why does your study smell so fragrant?" I lit some incense. "You hate incense." "Did the sun rise in the west today?" Michael didn't suspect anything, but then he got up and began looking for the source of the fragrance. As he approached the desk, Oberon reached out and stopped him. "Leave." "Huh? I'll give you 100,000. Take Nikki to get a bath. She reeks of dog." "That's the housekeeper's job." "Will you do it?" Oberon's commanding gaze was impossible to refuse. "Keep the rest of the money." "Fine. I'll make sure she's spotless." Michael left to deal with the dog. Once the villa was quiet again, I crawled out from under the desk, dizzy and feverish. I got straight to the point. "Did you have the same dreams as me?" "It seems that way," Oberon replied calmly. "How is that possible?" "Let's compare timelines." Pushing up his frameless glasses, Oberon began. "The first time was August 10th. You used me as your emotional dumpster and rambled nonsense. The second time, the sixth time, you asked to see my abs. Me, the seventh time. In September, Our relationship evolved. And we. Stop. That's enough. It was true. We were sharing dreams. The sheer weight of this realization, coupled with my fever, made me feel faint. Oberon caught me as I swayed. Don't think about it now. Rest. He carried me back to my bedroom. Halfway there, we ran into the housekeeper. She froze, her eyes widening in disbelief. Is that Miss Grace? Chapter 09. I desperately covered my face. Oberon remained calm. You know what to do. His voice was polite, but there was an undertone of quiet menace. The housekeeper quickly backed away. Oh dear. I must be getting old. My eyesight isn't what it used to be. I didn't see a thing. Oberon placed me on the bed and tucked me in. She's discreet. Rest easy and focus on recovering. Too exhausted to argue. I let sleep take over. By evening, Michael returned after bathing the dog. He tossed a box of medicine onto my nightstand. We're going to a party on the second day of the new year. Don't embarrass me. I thought he'd leave after that. But he suddenly sniffed the air again. Wait. This smell. It's familiar. Crap. Was I about to get caught? Chapter 10. I gripped the glass tightly. My mind blank. Michael, as oblivious as ever. Didn't read too much into it. My brother's study has the same incense. Smells pretty nice. I quietly let out a breath of relief. Then he muttered. My brother left on a business trip. So I've got a few days of freedom. Business trip? Yeah. He left at noon, probably avoiding me. Oberon didn't come back until the new year. When he saw me, he just gave a faint nod, as if nothing had happened. Soon, it was the second day of the new year. I had recovered from my illness and went with Michael to his high school reunion. Michael's personality made him the center of attention wherever he went. And as his girlfriend, I was dragged into the spotlight too. One of Michael's buddies threw an arm around his shoulders and whispered, "So this is the girl you're using to make Helen jealous? Bro, are you blind? She's way prettier than Helen." "You're the blind one. She's nothing compared to Helen," Michael retorted dismissively. "Did you warn her? Helen might come for her today." "No need to tell her," Michael said casually. "The more Helen targets her, the more it proves she can't get over me." I sat nearby, overhearing every word loud and clear. Michael turned away to clink glasses with someone. "Let's drink till we drop tonight," someone teased. "Aren't you scared your brother will come after you for this?" My brother? He's too busy to care. He's on a date today. My drifting thoughts snapped into focus. Oberon? On a date? As the current head of the Song Corporation, Oberon was powerful, handsome, and a hot topic for gossip. Michael was all too happy to share. "Yeah, the old bachelor is finally going on a date. Probably because the girl's gorgeous. I heard she's from a good family too. Looks like we're getting a sister-in-law soon." The loud music made it hard to think, and my irritation grew. Just then, the door to the private room swung open. "Helen's here. Welcome. School beauty." Chapter 11. Michael's ex was stunning, but her hostility toward me was palpable, surrounded by her entourage. Helen's words were laced with subtle jabs at me. Sensing the tension, I volunteered to wash the fruit knives in the kitchen, using the excuse to escape. At the same time, I started planning something else. Michael's extravagant spending had been my safety net. I'd never asked him for money directly, but picking up the scraps he left behind had been enough to cover my mother's surgery. It was time to end things, but how to bring it up? Lost in thought, I didn't notice Helen and her group closing in on me. She dropped her polished demeanor, adopting the tone of a street bully. "Did you just roll your eyes at me?" "No. Liar. We all saw it." "You're overthinking it," I replied lazily, still wiping the knife. "I can't even be bothered to look at you. Why would I roll my eyes?" Helen grew angrier. Her group rushed forward, tugging at my dress. "This dress? Michael bought it. Didn't he? He has terrible taste. Let's teach her a lesson about who she's messing with." Annoyed, I grabbed Helen's hair before they could ruin my dress. With a quick twist, I had her pinned under the faucet. "Let's get your head washed," I said coldly. "Cool down a bit." Helen's entourage was so shocked by my strength they stepped back. "You're right," I said dryly. "Michael does have terrible taste. Helen tried to yell, but I turned the faucet on full blast. Gurgle, gurgle. Oh, don't worry, I said, letting her sputter. We'll rinse that mouth out too. If you've got a problem, take it up with Michael. Coming after me is just embarrassing. Only a brainless, jealous girl like you would think a trashy guy like that is worth fighting over. Helen stopped screaming, switching to pitiful wails. The noise carried back to our private room, drawing Michael and the others. Helen, soaking wet, finally escaped my grasp and ran crying into Michael's arms. Your girlfriend bullied me. That's impossible. Grace wouldn't, Michael started. Helen sobbed even louder. You didn't see it? She shoved my head under the faucet. Her entourage chimed in. She did. We all saw it. How can you call yourself a man if you don't defend your ex? Michael, overwhelmed, turned to me with a stern expression. Grace, apologize to her. Chapter 12. Apologize? That was hilarious. I spun the fruit knife in my hand and took a step toward Michael. The room fell silent. Michael backed away under my gaze until he tripped over the sofa and landed in it. I planted one foot between his legs. My black velvet heel dangerously close to his most vulnerable area. We need to settle a few things. Scumbag. The flat side of the knife brushed against his cheek. Michael shivered, startled by the cold metal. You used me to get back at your ex. I let that slide. Lucky for me. I only wanted your money. You couldn't hurt me, so we're even. But from now on, we're done. Stay out of my life. Michael blinked, stunned, before grabbing my ankle. What do you mean? You only wanted my money? Exactly what it sounds like. Didn't you learn basic comprehension in school? Grace, you don't like me? I don't. I can't stand you. Under the dim lights, Michael's expression faltered, as if he couldn't process what I'd just said. That's impossible. You always did whatever I asked. I stabbed the fruit knife down. Michael froze in shock. Then he realized I'd only plunged the knife into the sofa beside him. Even coming home with you was about your family's money. Don't flatter yourself. Before I could finish, I felt an ominous presence behind me. I turned. Oberon stood in the doorway. He'd heard everything. Chapter 13. The dim lighting obscured his expression as Oberon approached. The first thing he did was toss his suit jacket over my shoulders. My dress had been torn slightly during the earlier scuffle with Helen and her entourage. Only then did he help Michael up. Michael seemed shaken and took a while to regain his composure. From the murmurs around us, I gathered that Oberon's blind date had also been at this restaurant. His timing couldn't have been more inconvenient. You're done for, Helen hissed as she passed me. President Song despises gold diggers. Every gold digger who's ever set foot in the Song family has met a miserable end. I let out a small laugh. I didn't need her warning. I already planned to leave. I wasn't naive enough to think Oberon would take my side in this situation. Dreams were just dreams. Michael was his real family. If I didn't leave now, when would I? I placed the suit jacket neatly on a chair and walked out of the restaurant without looking back. That night, I broke my SIM card and boarded a train. I had so much left to do: my mother's surgery, finding a job, rebuilding my life. I kept busy and buried myself in work. By June, I heard from a classmate that Michael had looked for me during the graduation ceremony but was told I hadn't returned to campus. Apparently, he'd looked devastated and lost. I couldn't understand it. Was he some kind of masochist? Thankfully, I had no plans to cross paths with him again. As for Oberon, I never dreamed of him again. Over 6 months passed. I stayed in my hometown, taking care of my mother and working. Life was quiet and uneventful until one day, out of nowhere, my company was acquired by the Song Corporation. Rumor had it that a senior executive had been sent to oversee the transition personally. Given how vast the Song family's business empire was, I didn't think much of it at first. But that morning, in the elevator, I ran into Oberon. Chapter 14. He was surrounded by the company's higher-ups. A star among them. That face, cold, distant, and devastatingly familiar, had haunted my dreams countless times. Seeing him again felt like a lifetime ago. The elevator was nearly full. One of the leaders turned to me and said, "Grace, you can wait for the next one." I was more than happy to oblige and took a step back. But then Oberon's cool voice cut through the air. There's enough room. Come in. I froze. The elevator was cramped, and I ended up standing so close to Oberon that our arms nearly touched. This is Grace Mao from the design department. One of the managers introduced me, a top talent. Oberon didn't reply. He glanced down at me instead. You've lost weight, he remarked casually, catching everyone in the elevator off guard. At lunchtime, Oberon flexed his wealth by ordering a lavish meal for all employees. I ate the rice but left the rest of the food untouched, though I didn't want to admit it. The lunch was extravagant, far beyond anything I could afford. I planned to take the leftovers home for my mother to try. By the afternoon, I was battling cramps from menstrual pain. As soon as the clock struck the end of the workday, I dashed into the elevator just before the doors could close. A hand slipped between them, stopping the elevator. Grace, let's talk. Oberon stepped inside. Chapter 15. 15 minutes later, I found myself sitting in a Rolls-Royce. Oberon had dismissed the driver and was now behind the wheel himself. Noticing the half-eaten lunch box I had brought, he glanced at it and asked casually, "Didn't like the food? Why did you want to talk to me?" I ignored his question and cut to the chase. If it's to make me apologize to Michael, forget it. Why would I want that? His tone was calm as he drove. I just thought, after meeting in our dreams, we never had a proper conversation. There's nothing to discuss. I'm materialistic, shallow, and a liar. We have nothing in common. I wouldn't be so sure. He chuckled lightly. Your company was underperforming, outdated, and inefficient. Yet I spent millions acquiring it, just to have something in common with you. I opened my mouth to retort, but a sharp pain in my stomach cut me off. Clutching my abdomen, I fell silent. Oberon glanced at me, his expression softening. Are you feeling unwell? Should we go to the hospital? No need. At a red light, he poured hot water into the lid of his thermos and handed it to me. What are you doing? That's your personal cup. I don't mind, do you? Even in pain. I couldn't resist the urge to fire back. So this is your game? One woman at home, another on the side, and one more in your dreams? I don't have a fiancé. You went on a blind date. Is that why you're upset? I fell silent, my annoyance bubbling to the surface. Oberon suppressed a smile and patiently explained. The blind date was purely for family interests. I told her right away that I was already interested in someone. We spent the entire meal discussing business. Nothing personal. Oberon, what exactly are you trying to say? You like money, don't you? He looked at me, his gaze uncharacteristically warm. I'm richer than Michael, cleaner, too. I've never dated anyone. Grace, consider me. Chapter 16. I thought Oberon might have lost his mind. His straightforwardness completely caught me off guard. Not only did he confess outright, but he also managed to take a jab at his brother in the process. Who could have expected this? After half a year without contact, the first thing he did upon seeing me was to confess. I was momentarily stunned. Oberon, however, wasn't in a rush. He drove slowly, as if giving me time to process. I had no choice but to remind him repeatedly. I love money compared to love. I think money is much more reliable. That's perfect. No one has more money than I do. I like men with a good physique, muscular, but not overly so. I think I qualify. You've touched me plenty in your dreams and seem to enjoy it. I was left speechless. Oberon then added a bit more context. Apparently, on the day I broke up with Michael, Oberon had overheard everything outside. Once he realized that my relationship with Michael had been fake, he was thrilled. His initial plan was to clean up his brother's mess before coming to me to express his feelings. But when he turned around, I was already gone. After that, no matter how much he tried, he couldn't contact me, neither could Michael. Over the past year, he'd used all his resources to track me down. His connections were vast, but he didn't want to make a scene and risk driving me further away, so he quietly searched, which took more time. He believed I must have had my reasons for leaving, and he was willing to adjust to meet my needs. After laying everything out, Oberon once again asked me to consider him. I didn't hesitate or play coy. I agreed directly. However, I had one condition: our relationship had to remain private. I didn't want to give up my career, nor did I want my colleagues to treat me differently because of my personal life. Oberon agreed to everything. He listened to me, just like he did in my dreams, always attentive and considerate. But sometimes, he could be a handful. For instance, during a company-wide meeting, Oberon sat there with his usual indifferent expression, occasionally glancing at his phone. He looked so composed and unattainable. No one knew he secretly sent me a photo of himself in a suit, kneeling, with his eyes covered. The message read, "Took this last night. Thought you might like it." I replied, "I'm in a meeting." He responded, "Don't like it? Sad puppy face. JPG. Sigh. Who wouldn't like that?" Chapter 17. The storm hit about 2 weeks later. That day, there was a loud knock at my door. Without checking the peephole, I opened it. Michael stood outside, holding a huge bouquet of flowers. "Grace, I finally found you." The joy on his face was met with pure shock on mine. Seeing me frozen in place, he quickly explained, "I asked around everywhere and finally got your address from one of your old classmates." "Oh, and you came to see me for what?" For once, Michael's usually mischievous face looked shy. "I want to get back together." "Me? Wait a minute. Is bluntness a genetic trait in the Song family?" Before I could respond, Oberon walked out from inside the apartment. "Is that the food delivery?" The two brothers locked eyes. The world seemed to fall silent. Maybe it was only 3 seconds, but it felt like an eternity. Michael blinked in confusion. "Brother, why are you here?" Chapter 18. That was an excellent question. Why was Oberon here? Of course, he'd stayed over last night, and he'd even demonstrated the suit kneeling pose in person. But there was no way I'd tell Michael that. My brain worked fast, and I said, "He's here to pick up some documents." "What?" "President Song is my boss now. He came by to collect some files." Michael looked puzzled. "What about his secretary?" "On vacation." I lied without batting an eye. Oberon glanced at me, his expression faintly showing a hint of grievance. I shoved an empty file folder into his arms. "All the documents you need are in here. You can leave now, and please take your brother with you." "Michael, why do I feel like I'm being treated as trash to be taken out?" Of course, Michael wasn't willing to leave. He clung to the doorframe, determined to stay. "Grace, listen to me. I was wrong to use you before. I've reflected on my mistakes, and I've completely cut ties with my ex. Please give me another chance. Let's start over. I promise I won't disappoint you." "No." I rejected him without hesitation. "Why not?" "Because I never liked you." Chapter 19. Michael wasn't ready to give up. He boldly joined our company and, within a day, everyone knew he was there to win me back. He brought me breakfast, delivered afternoon tea, and stopped just short of giving me shoulder massages at my desk. This couldn't go on. During lunch break, I called Michael into the break room and laid it out for him again. "I just want to work in peace. Please stop disrupting my life." Michael, taller than me and always dressed casually in hoodies, looked like a college boy rather than a man from a wealthy family. He nodded. "Okay, I'll tone it down." "It's not about toning it down. Can't you just go back to City A and live your rich boy life?" "I'm not leaving, even if you don't like me." "I don't want to leave." Michael's expression grew serious. "Grace, after you left, I spent a long time feeling guilty and reflecting on how I treated you. I just want to make it up to you now. To treat you well." From the corner of my eye, I noticed a familiar figure pass by the doorway. "Oberon? Was the almighty president eavesdropping?" I interrupted Michael. "I don't need your apologies. Everything you're doing now only crosses all my boundaries and makes me dislike you even more." Michael looked crushed. He left the break room looking utterly dejected, completely unaware that Oberon slipped in after him. The door shut, and Oberon pushed me against the wall, kissing me deeply. The break room didn't have a lock. Any colleague could walk in at any moment. I pushed him back lightly. "This is work hours. Behave." "Grace, I'm so happy." He took my hand and placed it over his chest. "What a firm chest. Do you feel that? My heart's beating so fast right now." "Oh, his heart. My bad." Chapter 20. After that break room conversation, Michael toned down his antics significantly. His bravado disappeared, and he became like a sulking puppy, often sitting in the corner and throwing me pitiful glances. As the Lunar New Year approached, our department had a team dinner. Oberon attended as well. Everyone speculated that he showed up to keep an eye on Michael and stop him from drinking too much. During the meal, our team leader suggested playing Truth or Dare. Michael chose Dare. The group immediately started teasing, daring me to drink a cross-cupped toast with him. Oberon's expression darkened. Standing abruptly, he said, "Grace, come with me. A client needs to review some design details." Seriously, President's song? Work during dinner? Oberon's cold glance swept across the room, and everyone quickly quieted down. Next to the dining area was a small partition space, separated by a red curtain. Once inside, Oberon wrapped his arms around me from behind, his warm breath tickling my neck. "Let's make it public. Grace, I can't hold back anymore. Be patient," I whispered. "Let me finish my current project first." I had my own career plans. Once the project was completed, I was confident I'd earn a promotion. Then, no one could claim my achievements were because of a relationship. My mother worked so hard, even through her illness, to support my education. I wasn't going to become some CEO's trophy girlfriend. I love my job. Please wait a little longer until I've proven myself. Oberon sighed in resignation, then nipped at my earlobe in frustration. His kisses became heated, making it hard to catch my breath. There was a makeup mirror in the corner of the room. He lifted my chin and said, "Why are you shy? Look at the mirror." In the reflection, I saw my flushed lips and the dazed, misty look in my eyes. Outside, the chatter continued. Michael's voice grew louder and closer. "What's taking them so long? I'll go check." Chapter 21. The curtain suddenly opened. It was as if nothing had happened. I kept my head down, pretending to work on my laptop, while Oberon stood casually with one hand in his pocket, leaning against a cabinet. Michael frowned. "Brother, the food's getting cold. You should eat." Everyone had been drinking, so no one noticed the faint lipstick mark near Oberon's Adam's apple. At the end of the meal, Michael offered to drive me home, but I declined. For the third time, I made it clear that there was no chance of us getting back together. This time, I told him I had a boyfriend. Michael froze, the shock sobering him up instantly. "Who? What's he like? Can I meet him?" "That has nothing to do with you." Michael looked crushed. A few days later, I was at the hospital taking care of my mother. While filling a kettle in the hallway, I unexpectedly bumped into Oberon. He looked surprised. "One of my former employees is sick, so I came to visit." "What about you?" "My mother is staying here." "Your mother? Is she seriously ill?" Before I could answer, an elderly patient nearby chimed in. "She's been sick for years, but her daughter is so filial. Older people love to chat, and this grandmother wasn't stopping. This girl is incredible. She's brilliant. Worked hard through college to save for her mom's surgery, and now she's looking after her while also hiring a caregiver." Another elderly woman joined in, adding, "In a small town like ours, with such modest salaries, hiring a proper caregiver leaves almost nothing left. She's been through a lot. Look at that sweater. She's been wearing it for years. She even goes hungry. Her company provides lunch now, but she always saves most of it to bring home for her mom. She barely eats a thing herself." Oberon slowly looked up, his eyes filled with a mix of shock and disbelief as he gazed at me. Chapter 22. My mother was asleep. Oberon and I stood by her bedside in silence for a long time. Finally, Oberon asked hoarsely, "Is this why you needed the money?" "Yes." "What about your father?" "I don't have one," I replied evenly. "It's just my mom. She raised me on her own while battling illness. It wasn't easy." "You only eat rice at lunch to save the rest for her?" "Speaking of that, I should thank you," I said, smiling lightly to reassure him. "No wonder you're so thin." "It's heartbreaking," Oberon muttered, his tone heavy with guilt. "How could I not have noticed sooner?" "It's fine. The hardest times are behind us." After a while, the nurse came to switch shifts. Oberon and I went downstairs for a walk. He made a few phone calls, his expression growing more serious with each one. I asked around. For a chronic illness like your mother's, it's best to transfer her to a top hospital in City A for the most effective treatment. He said, I know, but it would cost a fortune, and I didn't have that kind of money. I'll cover it, Oberon offered. I hesitated. This wasn't a small expense, and I didn't want to owe him anything, even when I accepted Michael's help in the past. It was with the understanding that I was being used in return. Oberon seemed to read my thoughts. He looked at me intently. Grace, what I'm about to say might seem abrupt, and this isn't the best setting, but will you marry me? Chapter 23. I stared at him in shock, unsure if I'd heard him correctly. This was even more sudden than his confession. You want to gamble your future on marriage just to help my mom get treatment? Of course not. Oberon was forthright. I have selfish reasons, very strong ones. What reasons? I like you so much that I want to hide you away. Over time, I've imagined that marrying you might finally make Michael give up entirely. He gave a self-deprecating smile, his lips curving slightly. To be honest, I can't stand the way he looks at you. Even though he's my brother, I've wanted to tear him apart. It was the first time Oberon had so plainly shown his possessiveness, though I'd already sensed it before. There was a turbulent undercurrent in his eyes, one that always softened into gentleness when he touched me. Every little thing he did to please me was a way to surpass Michael and everyone else. I hesitated for a moment. This is a big decision. I can't rush it. Give me some time to think about it. All right, I'll wait for you. The next day, Oberon hired several additional caregivers to share my workload. Lately, I'd been intentionally reducing the time I spent with him. I didn't want to string him along. But marriage was a significant step, and I needed time to consider it carefully. That afternoon, as I left the hospital, Oberon was waiting at the corner to drive me home. I decided to take the opportunity to ask him some questions. Why do you even like me? That was my first question. Just because we shared the same dreams? That doesn't seem like a good enough reason. Oberon answered. Probably because, before I dreamed of you, I thought I'd be alone for the rest of my life. How's that possible? Your list of potential dates could stretch to the Arctic. Oberon chuckled. Grace, you have your struggles, and I have mine. As the eldest son of my family, I've had only one goal for as long as I can remember, to be the perfect role model. And, whether you believe it or not, I've always lived for others' expectations, never for myself. Honestly, I envy Michael. What's there to envy? I've never gone joyriding. I've never gotten drunk. Even at social events, I always cling to the last shred of control. Before I met you, I'd never even been in a relationship. I think I finally understood. Oberon's perfection was robotic, and not by choice. He'd carried the weight of his family's expectations for so long that, despite his privileged life, it was exhausting. Grace, before I met you, I suffered from severe anxiety. I looked at him in surprise. It was the first time Oberon had mentioned this, and it shattered the image of composure he always projected. I didn't tell anyone in my family. I didn't want them to worry. During that time, I couldn't sleep without medication. Then, I dreamed of you. A soft smile appeared on his face, as if recalling a happy memory. You were funny, sharing stories about your school, the cafeteria food. Little things like that. Slowly, my anxiety eased. I could sleep without pills and even started looking forward to dreaming. By then, we had parked in the garage, but neither of us got out. And then, I started liking you even more, he admitted, his voice soft. After all, I'm a normal man. The way he said it made me a little embarrassed too. In short, Grace, your presence gave me hope for the future. I blinked at him. So, how do you plan to thank me? He chuckled lowly. I'll leave that up to you. Then he leaned in and kissed me. An hour later, we straightened our clothes. The car was still a bit of a mess. Someone knocked on the window. I turned and saw Michael, though the tinted glass prevented him from seeing inside. Michael clearly recognized whose car it was. He clenched his jaw, his expression strained as he asked, Grace, is he your boyfriend? Chapter 24. Oberon made no effort to conceal anything. He lowered the car window, revealing us both sitting in the back seat. Michael scanned the interior of the car, his eyes instantly bloodshot. "When did this start?" he asked, his voice tinged with despair. "Recently? 3 months ago. But if we're going way back, before you," I replied. "So, you knew each other long before?" "Yes, Michael. Technically speaking, you were the latecomer," Oberon added, twisting the knife. Michael's hands tightened, nearly digging into the gaps between the car seats. He gritted his teeth. "You two were playing me?" "Not really," I interjected. "Think of it this way, Oberon and I were online friends." "Oh, so online dating? Thanks to me, you two got to meet in real life?" "More or less. F***K that." "Why didn't you tell me?" he demanded, glaring at me with reddened eyes. "I did tell you, Michael. I told you I had a boyfriend, but you didn't say it was this bastard Oberon," Michael roared, slamming his fist against the car. Oberon was about to speak, but I stopped him. This was my issue with Michael, and I would handle it myself. "Michael, I've turned you down 3 times. I think I've made it clear I don't like you based on our relationship. Why should I tell you anything about my private life?" My tone was gentle, but my words hit Michael like a hammer. "A year ago, when you used me to spite your ex, did you tell me? At the reunion, when you knew Helen would target me, did you warn me? When Helen and her friends tore my dress, what did you say to me?" I reminded him. "You told me to apologize to her." Each statement was like a boomerang, coming back to strike Michael where it hurt most. "So, you have no right to demand that I report my personal life to you." Chapter 25. By this point, Michael was on the verge of breaking down. Oberon tossed a set of car keys at him. "Want to race?" Michael stared at him, bewildered. "A race? Oberon, have you lost your mind? You've never raced in your life." "Try me," Oberon replied calmly. I knew my part in this was over. Now, it was time for the brothers to settle their own issues. They drove to an empty highway. Before the race began, Michael declared, "If I win, you back off and give grace to me." Oberon didn't respond. When the race started, both of them slammed on the gas, speeding recklessly down the road. The highway ended at the sea. Neither of them showed any intention of slowing down. As the edge grew closer, Michael shouted, "Oberon, are you insane? Slow down." But Oberon ignored him. In the end, Michael was the first to yield, hitting the brakes out of fear. Only then did Oberon stop. Mere meters from the edge. 1 more meter, and he would have plunged into the water with the car. Michael slumped over his steering wheel, pounding it in frustration until his fists turned red. "I lost. I completely lost," he muttered. Oberon, ever composed, stepped out of his car. "Michael, about the condition you set before the race, now I'll answer you." Michael looked up, his face filled with despair. "Anything else, I can give up to you, but not her." "Why?" Michael asked bitterly. "Because she's not a possession." Chapter 26. After that day, Michael disappeared. I heard he returned to City A, spent some time wallowing in misery, and eventually quit his position at the company to study abroad. Perhaps he finally realized that drinking, partying, and reckless behavior wouldn't make him more appealing. Knowledge and capability were the real foundations of self-worth. My mother was transferred to a top hospital in City A, where she received better treatment and care. 2 years later, I visited the Song family again, this time to formally meet Oberon's parents as his fiancé. To my surprise, his parents weren't shocked at all. We suspected as much. Back then, Michael didn't seem the least bit like he was in love. But Oberon, he was acting strange. He's always been quiet. But those days, he was clearly not himself. I smiled sheepishly. "I'm sorry for all the trouble, Mr. and Mrs. Song." "Oh, nonsense. It's Michael's fault. He needed a lesson, and now he's matured a little," Mrs. Song said, holding my hand as her eyes welled with tears. "Grace, thank you for saving Oberon." It seemed they'd learned about Oberon's struggles with anxiety. That Lunar New Year, while walking through the streets, I ran into Helen. The moment she saw me, She rolled her eyes. You've got some nerve showing your face. Didn't President Song ever give you trouble? He hates gold diggers the most. She stopped mid-sentence when Oberon walked up behind me and wrapped his arms around my waist. Darling, what did she say? He asked. I blinked innocently. She said you hate me. Is that true? Honey, I'm so heartbroken. Dealing with a pretentious coquette? Please, who couldn't play that game? Impossible. You're my favorite. Oberon replied smoothly. Helen's eyes nearly popped out of her head before she stormed off in defeat. Oberon, however, refused to let me go. I nudged him. All right. The show's over. Still clinging to me like a giant puppy, he whispered. What did you call me just now? Say it again, please. Standing on my toes, I leaned close to his ear. Husband. Oberon's eyes curved with warmth as he smiled softly at me. And so, hand in hand, we walked through season after season together. Life is so long, yet how lucky I am to have found you.